Hello and welcome to BlueTube, where we talk all things blue. Today I'm very excited because I'm going to be kicking off a brand new series, and as the title says, it is called Opposition Analysis, and it's pretty self-explanatory. This isn't going to be a very frequent kind of series. It's going to be very rare. It's going to be only against the big games, against the top 4 teams in the Premier League, or if we're playing a Champions League knockout round, or if we're in a final or a semi-final of a domestic cup. What I'm going to be basically doing is looking at the last few games of our opposition and just analyzing them, breaking them down, looking at their strengths and weaknesses. And for example, for today's video, of course there's Chelsea versus Manchester City tomorrow, 4 p.m. UK time. Be sure to catch it. I've looked at each of Manchester City's preseason games, and I've looked at our last weekend's clash against West Bromwich Albion and just try to identify strengths and weaknesses. And by the way, this is just some of my research notes, just me writing down what I thought of the games and stuff. So if I'm looking down here, that's why. It's not just because I'm overly obsessed with my... Moving on. What was I talking about? Yeah, so let's just get straight into the video. Before I talk about any of their strengths and weaknesses, let me just list the last 5 games, which goes back all the way to the beginning of their preseason, which kicked off against Melbourne City. And Manchester City kicked off with a 1-0 win there. Next, they had a 2-2 draw against AS Roma in their preseason, which they went on to win in penalty shootouts. And then a 4-1 loss against Real Madrid, and they finished their preseason with an incredible 8-1 win against Vietnam 11. And then, of course, last weekend, you all know, in the Premier League, they beat West Brom 3-0 with Yaya Toure, being the star man. There's lots of things to talk about. I've noted down a bunch of stuff here, but let me begin with some of their weaknesses and what I think Chelsea can take advantage of. And the first thing that I noticed of watching all their games is that they're very weak against crosses. Their defense doesn't look strong at all, and this isn't something new, because their defense has never been, very strong. Now, our defense has always been very strong. I say strong a lot. Our defense has always been very stable, very consistent, and this preseason it's been a bit shaky. But Manchester City, their defense has never been, the rock that our defense was. So it was kind of expected, but to be honest, I was surprised at how many crosses were getting through and how badly they were defending them. They just couldn't get their head on it, they couldn't kick it out, they couldn't clear it out, and it's unbelievable how many goals they conceded just from crosses. And I think with players like Willian and Ivanovic bombing down that right-hand side, it's gonna be a very good opportunity for us to score goals from these crosses. However, there is a bad side to this as well, because I've made a video about this before as well. I think I talked about it in the Swansea match review, but Chelsea just cannot cross to save their life. And we've got players like John Terry, Gary Cahill, Kurt Zouma, Diego Costa, ready to head the ball, waiting in the box, but no one can get the cross in, whether it's a set piece, whether it's an open play. No, we've got players like Fabregas, Willian, Ivanovic, you think they can put in a good cross, but they just can't. And especially corner kicks, when Fabregas takes them, he always goes too shallow, he always goes too short. He just doesn't hit it deep enough, and it always gets headed off by the first defender standing there, and it's the most annoying thing in the world. And to be honest, the only player in our team that can put in a good cross consistently is Oscar. And guess what? Jose Mourinho announced yesterday in his press conference that Oscar is a doubt for today's game, or for tomorrow's game. So it doesn't look like we'll be able to take advantage of these crossings. But there are days when Chelsea can show up. And if Chelsea do show up with their crossing ability, if Willian and Ivanovic and Fabregas, especially from corner kicks, put the ball deep enough, put it into good, dangerous places, I think Chelsea will really be able to capitalize on that. And really, knowing Mourinho, we are going to probably put up a slightly defensive setup. And set pieces are going to be a very good opportunity for us to score. Because trust me, you can go, if you don't believe me, you can go back and watch all these games. You'll see the amount of goals they concede from corner kicks, from free kicks, from crosses that are just that you wouldn't expect them to concede from. It's unbelievable. And really, with players like Ivanovic, Terry, Cahill, Zouma lurking around that box, especially from corner kicks and free kicks, we should be able to nick a goal or two from those crosses if Manchester City's defense does not improve. And I'm really hoping that it doesn't. So that's the one major weakness that I picked up from them. But to be fair, Man City did have a great preseason. Unlike us, they won games and they played very, very well. As I said, they beat Melbourne, scored 2 against AS Roma, went to penalties, beat them as well. Scored 8 against Vietnam XI, and of course, they won 3-0 against West Brom just last weekend. So they did play very well. So what are some of their strengths? And I have a lot of them. So if you guys can see here, that's my weaknesses about the CrossFit, and that's all their strengths. So they are doing very, very well. So firstly, let me talk about Yaya Toure. He was great against West Brom, but he was great in preseason as well. And especially their first game in preseason against Melbourne City, Yaya Toure got the goal that got them the win from a free kick. A powerful, great free kick. Yaya Toure, he ran the show. Apart from the goal, he just linked up everybody. He played long balls, short balls. He played quick 1-2 or in and around the box. He was very, very good. Yaya Toure, he was frighteningly good. To be fair, he did disappear kind of. He didn't disappear, but he wasn't as prominent against AS Roma, Real Madrid as the preseason went on. But then against West Brom just last weekend, he showed what he could do. Getting 2 goals, getting the brace in the Premier League opening day. He is a top scorer in the Premier League, I think, or joint top scorer. And he is very, very, very good. And what did I write here? Yeah, he basically ran the show against Melbourne, and arguably against West Brom as well. And I will talk more about individual players, including Yaya Toure, a bit later on in the video. But let's move on. And the second strength that hit me was their wing play, and especially Jesus Navas. And this, you may be surprised, because against West Brom, he didn't play very well. Yeah, let's not deny that. Jesus Navas, he just didn't play very well. But throughout their preseason, against all these teams, he played well. Especially against Melbourne, again. He got so many shots on. The amount of time he bombed down that right-hand side, put a cross, and gave an opportunity to a teammate, or he cut back in and took a shot with his left foot or his right foot, and got shots on target. He shot a lot, and I think that's a good thing. And you can't score unless you take shots. That's the most basic rule of football. And Jesus Navas, he looked really, really positive throughout the preseason. And just watching Man City's preseason, I thought it was quite strange that he didn't perform well against West Brom. And of course, against Chelsea, he'll be playing against Azpilicueta, who normally I have full confidence that he'll just pick Jesus Navas and put him in his pocket. But now, Chelsea's defense does not look very, very strong. So you never know. His pace and I don't know what it was. This preseason, he just had something about him. Just being able to cut inside and get that shot on. And in fact, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, that's exactly what he did against us on that right-hand side. Azpilicueta was there, he cut inside, shot with his left foot, top corner in the Community Shield final in their 1-0 triumph. So, who knows, if Jesus Navas performs as he did in the preseason, I do think he can cause quite a few problems for Chelsea tomorrow. Another thing I noticed was through balls, and this kind of, gets me a little bit concerned, because Chelsea's defense has looked very, very, very weak against through balls. An example, Chelsea versus Swansea. Of course, the penalty, I know Chelsea's defensive line was a good line. It was Willian who played Gomez onside. Nevertheless, it was a through ball. Chelsea lost the goalkeeper. We lost the goal, from the penalty, and it just wasn't good. And just apart from that game, our entire preseason, our defense has looked very, very shaky, and one of the biggest, I don't know what the word is, the biggest problems in our defense was our inability to defend against through balls, and that really worries me. And especially in Man City, Sterling, he looks good. Okay, let's just forget about the fact that he was bought for £50 million, because that's still very, very debatable. But as a player, he played very, very well in every single one of Man City's games. And the biggest part of his game for me was his ability to time his runs so perfectly. And he's got players like David Silva and Yaya Toure supplying balls for him. So he does look very, very dangerous. And in fact, the very first goal he scored for City was against AS Roma in the 2-2 draw. And the goal he scored was through ball, runs one-on-one with the keeper, slots it into the right-hand corner, the bottom right corner. And that was a recurring theme throughout the entire preseason. And in fact, against West Brom, he had a similar chance, but he missed a one-on-one chance. But he does look very, very positive. And especially with Ivanovic on our right-hand side, I don't know. I am a little concerned. I know I did say in my Ivanovic video. If you haven't checked that out, go be sure to check it out. I made a video about Ivanovic, whether he's good enough, because against Swansea City, Montero was just running circles around Ivanovic, and his lack of pace and the fact that he's aging really, really showed. And he's 31 years old, so playing right back at that age is a very difficult task, because naturally your body slows down. But in that video I did say that his strength makes up for it, and last season he was the greatest right back in the Premier League, and this season he will be competing for that spot in the Premier League 11 at the team of the season as well. But I do think Sterling could cause a lot of problems. So from both flanks, Jesus Navas, if he performs, and Sterling, he has performed, it could be very, very tough for us defensively. And I think Ivanovic especially will require a lot of cover from Matic, with doing some overlapping, communication. And I do think the communication has to be top today. And last season it was John Terry commanding the line, and everyone we just knew where everybody was. If someone ran, someone would run back to fill in the hole. It was great. We were a machine. It was like clockwork. But this season it's not the same. And I really hope that we do get back to our best defensively. And especially tomorrow, Sterling's pace, his ability to time runs, that really, made an impression on me. The timing of his runs were really, really good, and I do think it's going to pose a lot of problems for Ivanovic and potentially our center backs as well. And finally, I know there's a lot of strengths. The final thing is their edge of box play, and it's been very typical in the last 5 games of City for them to bomb down one of the wings, and instead of putting the cross in, they cut it back to the edge of the box, and someone like Yaya Toure or Sterling comes and just smash it into the top corner. And that looks very, very, very dangerous. In fact, Yaya Toure, he scored a goal just like that against West Brom. Someone cuts it in for him, and from the edge of the box, Yaya Toure just guides it into the right-hand corner, and they get a goal. And that's what Yaya Toure did just last weekend. And who says that they can't do it, tomorrow? And what really concerned me about this was, if you remember against Barcelona, in our 2-2 draw against Barcelona, by the way, I have a match review on that as well. Please, be sure to check that out if you haven't. There's the second goal by Barcelona was very, very similar to a lot of goals that Manchester City are scoring. And it was similar in the fact that the player got the ball at the edge of the box and just got a lot of space, and he just shot it into one of the corners. And he was able to do that because the Chelsea defense, the Chelsea midfield, didn't put enough pressure on him. They gave him too much space. And it's very similar with Yaya Toure, and Sterling scored a sensational goal as well against Vietnam, I think. But Yaya Toure just last weekend, he got space on the edge of the box, and he just blasted into the top corner. And Chelsea just cannot afford to do that. So I do think players like Matic and Fabregas especially, Fabregas has to do his defensive duties. I'm sure Matic will be the rock that he always is. And who knows, maybe Mourinho will play a wild card, slot in Zuma in there, just to, spice up that midfield, add a bit more defensive solidity. But we have to make sure we don't give them space at the edge of the box, because they will punish us, as Yaya Toure has shown just last weekend. And that kind of, finishes my analysis part. Let me just talk about some of the danger men that I've identified from that City team. And it's just 3 players: Sterling, Yaya Toure, and David Silva. Let me talk about Sterling first. I just basically said everything that I need to say already. He makes great runs. The through balls, he looks very, very good because of his pace, because of his ability to time runs. And as I said, his pace will give Ivanovic a really, really tough time. It'll be interesting to see how Mourinho counters for it, because I'm sure Mourinho has that in his mind. I'm sure Mourinho knows that Ivanovic doesn't have the pace to keep up with Sterling. So it'll be interesting to see what Mourinho implements to counter that. Yaya Toure, as I said, his shots are amazing. In fact, against Melbourne, his free kick was great as well. He scored the winning goal from a free kick. Against Swansea, he scored from the edge of the box, and we really have to be careful from the edge of the box. Be careful not to give him the space that if he does have it, he can just blast it in. It's as simple as that. So we just need to stay tight on him. And against Man City 2 seasons ago, the season that Matic came in, I remember Matic that was a season that Toure was on fire, guys. And Matic just put him in his pocket in his full Chelsea debut, and that was his full Chelsea debut, as I said, his first game, his first full game, and he put Yaya Toure in his pocket. And maybe Matic will do the same thing. Maybe Mourinho, he might put Zuma on him to silence him. Who knows? But we just can't give him space. And finally, David Silva. I didn't talk about him a lot previously, but he's one of the men that doesn't get the goals, but he gets the assists, and that's what makes him so dangerous. His passing ability, his vision, especially his ability to put in through balls for Sterling to run onto, or his ability to run down that left-hand side and cut the ball into the edge of the box for Yaya Toure to smash into the goal. David Silva, we all know he's a world-class player. I'd love it if he came to Chelsea. I think he'd fit in very well in our center attacking midfield spot. But he's at City, and we do have to be careful tomorrow. And because he's a great passer of the ball, he's got great vision, as I've said, and he's gonna cause a lot of problems as well if we don't manage to silence him. And now let's just talk about some of the team news. And this is just fairly obvious stuff. As you guys know, Courtois, red card against Swansea City. Since it was a tactical foul and not violent conduct, he's only missing 1 game, even though it was a direct red card. Because usually, if it was for violent conduct, he'd be out for 3 games. If it was a direct red card. So thankfully, he will be back against West Bromwich Albion next week. But today, Begovic will slot in. And as I said, Oscar is a doubt. This was announced yesterday in Mourinho's press conference. And by the way, I made a video covering that press conference yesterday as well. So be sure to watch that episode of Transfer Talk. And in terms of Man City, you may be surprised why I didn't include Sergio Aguero in the danger man. Because, he's a world-class player. Last season, arguably one of the best players in the Premier League, along with Hazard and Sanchez. But Aguero is apparently a doubt. He's a 50-50. And from what I hear, Pellegrini is trying to rush him on because he wants him to play. Of course, if he doesn't come, he's got Wilfred Bony. He has got other options. But of course, he's not the same as Aguero. Aguero is a world-class player. But even if he does play, I don't think he's gonna be, I don't think he's gonna be at his top form. I don't think he's gonna be, a major threat. In fact, throughout the entire preseason, he hasn't really played a lot because, of course, Copa America, Argentina went to the final, so he had a break. So who knows? If he does play, I'm not too worried about him, but of course he's a world-class player, so we can't ignore him. I think the bigger threats are Sterling, Toure, and Silva. And that's kind of all the team news for Chelsea and City. And before I let you guys go, I'm just going to give you guys my final predictions for this game. And this has been a long video, but I'm excited because I like this kind of analysis. But let me give you my predictions. And before I give you the scoreline, let me give you the team predictions. And I won't give you the Man City prediction because I'm not really, I don't really have expertise in that area. But Chelsea-wise, I have my thoughts. Of course, Mourinho, in these big games, he can pull something out of the hat and do something that nobody expected. So, my prediction will probably be wrong, but here it goes anyway. I predict Begovic in goal, Azpilicueta left back, Gary Cahill, John Terry center back, Ivanovic right back. Central midfield, Nemanja Matic, Cesc Fabregas, Nemanja Matic and Kurt Zouma, and then in the attacking 3, Eden Hazard, Fabregas, and Willian, and at striker Diego Costa. And you may be wondering, Zouma, because I do think, as any Chelsea fan, as any football fan, I'd love to see us just, throw on attacking players. I know a lot of people are predicting Moses to play. Willian slots into the number 10 role where Oscar would have played, and we play Nemanja Matic and Fabregas in the holding midfield positions. But knowing Mourinho, I think he's gonna go for a more, stable setup and play Nemanja Matic and Kurt Zouma, just so he can, he can be sure that, that Yaya Toure and David Silva don't cause us any major problems. And of course, Fabregas will be in the number 10 role as a creative player to link the defense and the offense. And to be honest, I don't predict. I don't see a game where Chelsea are attacking. We're all over City. I don't see that because looking at our previous games, looking at City's previous games, we don't look very good. They look very good. So I do think that Man City will control the ball. They will have more of the possession, but don't rule out Chelsea winning the game. I do think Chelsea will get a goal, whether it's from a set piece, whether it's from a corner. I do imagine Chelsea will have spells in the game, maybe 20-minute, 30-minute spells in the game where we do really put up a fight, where we do attack, where we do have the initiative. So I do expect a tight game, but my overall scoreline prediction, on here I wrote down 2 scorelines because I really can't decide. My first one is a 1-1 draw, and my second one is a 2-1 win for Chelsea. And the reason that I have these 2 scorelines is because I expect a very, very tight game. And I just don't see us getting a clean sheet against Manchester City at the Etihad with our current defense being as fragile as it is. That's why I put it a 1-1 draw or a 2-1 win. I didn't put us getting a clean sheet at all. And I really can't decide on these 2 scorelines. A 1-1 draw. I don't think Chelsea will not score. I do see us scoring. Just the question is how many. You know what? I'm tempted to go for a 2-1 Chelsea win, and I really want Chelsea to get that win. But my brain tells me it's going to be a draw. As much as I want Chelsea to win, my prediction is going to be a 1-1 draw for Chelsea. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Please leave your prediction. And if you're feeling a little bit daring, be sure to leave who's going to score as well. And I would give that prediction, but I honestly just don't know. But if you're feeling like a daredevil, be sure to do so. If you like this new series, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like on this video. And just give me any tips on how I can improve this series for the next episode, which will be hopefully coming in, sooner rather than later. But as I said, this is going to be a not very frequent series. So only, finals, semi-finals, knockout games, or, top 4 clashes in the Premier League. But I hope you've enjoyed this opposition analysis for today. Of course, there will be a transfer talk later on today, so don't worry about that if you're expecting that. And tomorrow is the City game. Fingers crossed we win, but my prediction is a 1-1 draw. Tell me yours in the comment section below. I don't know. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this new series. Stay blue.